what I say oftentimes is, yeah, you want to 10x your money, you buy Bitcoin. You want 100x your money, you buy Bitcoin with somebody else's money. You want 1,000x your money, you buy Bitcoin with someone else's money, and then you lever the Bitcoin. And so my advice is, think about innovative ways to build the most powerful capital structure in the world, and that'll be the subject of my talk later today, while you're thinking about ways to actually build the most compelling transformational products or services in this world. And if you can't do that, at the very least, make sure that you yourself are 1,000 times or 1,000,000 times smarter, faster, stronger.
Michael Saylor emphasizes that to massively grow wealth with Bitcoin, you need to think bigger, buy Bitcoin outright to 10x your money, use other people's money to 100x it, and leverage Bitcoin itself to aim for 1,000x returns. His advice is to build powerful, innovative capital structures and become smarter and faster to stay ahead in this new financial era. He explains how AI has transformed his work by speeding up complex tasks like analyzing lengthy documents and designing financial products. Using AI as an intelligent editor and deep researcher helps him process information thousands of times faster, enabling groundbreaking moves in capital markets that were previously impossible. Saylor also highlights the future economy's shift towards digital assets, data, AI labor, and Bitcoin as key components. He predicts an explosion in productivity driven by digital property and intelligence, with Bitcoin playing a crucial role as the scarce, valuable digital capital that companies and AI systems will increasingly demand.
You know, when the first chat programs came out, they were cute, and then they started getting smart. And when the first image generators came out, they were cute, and then they started getting smart, and then they started getting better. And I was drawn into the world because I wanted to be able to communicate messages. So first we would generate images, and eventually I found that computer-generated portraits of myself are actually better looking than I am.
No.
Actually, the more important point is, if you wanted to make a point, it was a lot easier to put myself on Mount Everest with a computer-generated image than doing it in the real world. We started to generate content much more rapidly. Then I realized I could use AI as an editor, and it became my editor. And you know, you want to make a sophisticated point, but you're in a hurry, and you have people say, "Do you run your own X account?" Yeah, I run my own X account. I create my own post, and it's like, well, aren't you worried about misspelling or mistyping, or like, is that the right way to use the hyphen? And I found, well, it'd be great if I had an intelligent editor, and I started using it as an editor. Then I realized, my job is to have an opinion on, does this bill influence Bitcoin and how? So when they drop a 200-page bill, I realized if I could put that into AI, summarize it, query it, and compare it, I could think 100 times faster, maybe 1,000 times faster. And I began using AI to accelerate my ability to think. That's pretty important. If there's 100 bills and someone wants to know, what about this, what about that, what do you think about that document? I can't afford to have we've had 40 people in the marketing department or working for me, and if I ask the question, I might wait a few days or a week to get the answer, but I don't have a week or a few days. I have sometimes 2 minutes. If you want to be relevant, sometimes if Elon Musk posts something, you have 60 seconds. The world requires that you be smarter, faster, stronger. So I started using it in that way, and then not a long time ago came along deep research, and that was a big aha moment, because first I used an order of magnitude more computing power, and then I used 2 orders of magnitude more computing power. And then I started asking questions via deep research. Well, how would you design this security, or is this possible? I have a question which would require 5 lawyers and 3 financiers to answer, and it would take them 2 weeks to answer. And I would put this chat in deep research mode, and I would grind it, and it would grind through 50 sources and work for 15 minutes and come back. And it doesn't necessarily give me the answer that I can immediately act on, but it gives me somewhere between 80 and 95% of what I need. And then I take that to the finance department. I take that to the legal department. So a lot of our innovative capital markets activity, things like Strife, things like Strike, we had to fight through all sorts of complicated legal issues, complicated financial issues. You know, we did a convertible preferred stock. It had never been done before. We listed it on NASDAQ. It had never been done before. We attached a shelf registration to it. It had never been done before. We made it a perpetual dividend, good for 1,000 years. It had never been done before. We created a perpetual call option. It had never been done before. We put a shelf registration on it. Never been done before. Now, when you go to 25 professionals with 30 years experience, say, I want to do 20 things that have never been done before, and I want to do them in a hurry. I need an answer in the next 48 hours, right? That creates a very stressful situation. And what I found with AI is the AI doesn't have a lot of ego. I can ask it a question. I can tell it that's not right. I can tell it that's stupid. I can disagree. I can work through my issues. And then after I've gone through 20 iterations, which would have ground human beings into a pulp, I can then take the 95% answer to the finance team and the legal team and the bankers and the market and say, I think this is plausible. And I don't just share the result, I share the link. I say, go into the chat, you know, I've uploaded 27 documents. I've actually had to grind through case law of every public company that's ever done this before. I've analyzed the finance. I think it's more likely than not this will work. And at that point, when you've taken the process to 95%, you can then get to a result and build consensus. And half of AI is about consensus and doing it in a cheerful, constructive way, right? When I'm yelling, I prefer to yell at the AI, right? I really want to do this. No, you can't. Well, what if I do this? No. Well, and eventually you get to a point where maybe you can move forward. And I can say, you know, with a high degree of confidence, right? A lot of the things we've done in the capital markets, we just couldn't have done that. Those two preferred stocks, Strife and Strife, are the first AI-designed securities that I know of, certainly in our industry. So I've been inspired by it, and I think we're just scratching the surface. That, you know, the next step will be to go from deep research, which is where, by the way, I went from the $20 a month, you get a few of these things, to the $200 a month subscription where you get unlimited, to the we're cutting you off because even unlimited, we think you're burning our silicon. You know, I think we're going to go from deep research to agents where I just say, hey, you work for me, scan everything in the Twitter sphere today about knowing what I think and tell me what I should say, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do it. And then scan the capital markets. I tend to ask questions like, look at every single publicly traded company and give me the open interest divided by their market cap and the liquidity and the trend of the liquidity, and then tell me where we stand. Click. Okay. Yeah, and the next step will be, well, why don't you just do that every day? And then, so what I think I've learned is we're going to consume exponentially more silicon and exponentially more electricity and digital power because that's the way you break through to the new idea and the new market. And you just can't go the 20th century way. You can't even do things the way we did it 3-4 years ago. In the words of Magnus Carlsen, it's too weak, it's too slow. You have to be faster and stronger.
Michael Saylor builds wealth by using Bitcoin as a powerful base to multiply money through smart financial strategies and leveraging others' funds. He focuses on speed, scale, and innovation to create new digital financial systems. He also uses AI to quickly process complex information, speeding up his work on contracts and capital structures. Saylor sees a future economy driven by digital assets, AI, and Bitcoin as the core digital capital enabling huge growth.
If we think about classic economics, the economy was about land, labor, and capital, and you use those three components to create prosperity. And I think we're living in this digital transformation where digital land or digital property, digital labor, digital capital, and it's pretty clear that the agents in cyberspace are going to work 1 billion times harder or 1 billion times faster for us all. It's pretty clear that those bots will be put into robots, and the cars are going to drive themselves, and sometime in our lifetime, we'll have talking, walking, useful robots. And so the robots are coming to the real world, the agents are coming to the cyber world. You're going to see an explosion of digital labor. I think we'll need less physical property and we'll need less physical labor. There'll be a dramatic decrease in the physical labor component in the economy. And of course, if the robots and the agents are doing a lot of work, they don't need as much real estate. They don't need as much physical property. What they do need, digital property, intellectual property, right? So the access to proprietary data. Turns out that ask the AI a question, give me the 30-day call rate, selling call options at the money. And it's really good at calculating it, but it gets shut down if it's scraping a website. It needs a clean data feed. And so I'm either hyper intelligent or I'm stupid as can be. It'll give me the absolute wrong answer if it has to scrape a website, but it'll give me a perfect answer when I give it clean data. So digital property in the form of data feeds, what is the vector trajectory of every iPhone in the world right now? If you give that to the AI, you get some interesting results. What is the status, the open interest of every public company everywhere in the world right now? You'll get interesting insights. So I think the companies that have digital properties, right? It's not so much the Bessemer process for creating steel. It's not a static, know-how. The AI figures out how to do things statically pretty well. What it doesn't do is it doesn't figure out, how do I extract real-time proprietary data feeds? And so I think that the value of data, which all of our customers have, the value of proprietary data, is going to explode. And you got to think about, can I license my data to someone else so that they can plug it into an AI so they can change their product? And I think digital capital is, which is Bitcoin, is very important. When you come away from these things, you think, if I plug digital intelligence and digital labor into digital property. By the way, property is heterogeneous. There's 10,000 proprietary databases, just like real world property is heterogeneous. Tokyo real estate is different than New York. So digital property is a whole set of thousands of heterogeneous but very valuable things in the world. The digital labor and the digital intelligence, less heterogeneous. There are going to be some monster models and everybody's going to use them. Digital capital, Bitcoin, homogeneous. A Bitcoin is a Bitcoin, and what you're going to see is companies are going to create extraordinary products, extraordinary services. There's going to be a 100x increase in productivity. There's going to be a 100x increase in everything. We're going to produce more of everything in every way that everybody can imagine. If you're a corporation, if you're a private actor, if you're a capitalist, what are you going to do with that capital? You're going to roll it into Bitcoin. The AIs are going to want to buy the Bitcoin. The companies are going to buy the Bitcoin. The demand is going to be for the most scarce, desirable, liquid, fungible capital asset. And so the explosion of productivity with digital property and digital intelligence and digital labor will create an explosion in demand for digital capital. And I think all of those are just mutually beneficial trends. And if you're a company, you just want to figure out how your shareholders benefit, how your customers benefit, how your employees benefit from this trend.
Other than buy Bitcoin, what advice do you have for folks here who want to transform themselves and their companies?
I think, it's pretty clear. You want to harness digital intelligence and harness digital capital to drive your costs down, drive your productivity up, improve your products, improve your services. You want to look for that revolutionary new product. You want to look for that revolutionary new service. You want to improve your securities. You want to revolutionize your capital structure.
Michael Saylor's approach to wealth centers on using Bitcoin not just as an asset, but as a foundational digital capital that enables leveraging and scaling financial strategies. By combining speed, innovation, and the power of AI, he redefines how capital and contracts can be managed in the digital era, positioning Bitcoin as the core of a new, decentralized financial ecosystem. His vision emphasizes the transformative potential of technology and digital assets in shaping the future economy. As Bitcoin and AI continue to evolve, Saylor's strategy highlights the importance of adapting quickly and thinking beyond traditional finance. His insights challenge us to rethink how wealth is created and preserved in a world increasingly driven by digital innovation. How do you see Bitcoin changing the future of finance? What role do you think AI will play in managing and growing digital assets? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments.